Section 1. The perfect marriage, or so it seemed. From the outside, my life looked like a dream. I was married to a man who, in everyone else's eyes, was the perfect husband. He was well-respected, hard-working, and carried himself with a kind of confidence that made people trust him instantly. To friends and family, we were the couple others wanted to be, stable, united, and seemingly in love. Our home was warm and filled with little reminders of the life we had built together. Photos from vacations, small notes he used to leave me on the refrigerator, and laughter that once filled our evenings. For years, I believed we were unshakable. I believed that love, trust, and loyalty were the foundations of our marriage. But as time passed, small cracks began to appear. At first, they were barely noticeable. His late nights at the office, the way he seemed distracted during conversations, the silence that sometimes stretched too long at dinner. I told myself he was tired, that work was simply demanding more of his energy. Yet, in the quiet of the night when he lay beside me, I felt the distance growing. I remember staring at him while he slept, wondering if I was imagining things. Was I being paranoid? Or was something slipping away between us? I wanted to reach out, to hold him, to ask him if he felt the same distance I did. But the words never came. Instead, I convinced myself that this was just a phase. That every marriage had its ups and downs. Still, I couldn't ignore the emptiness that had slowly replaced the warmth we once shared. Our conversations grew shorter, our laughter less frequent, and our moments together began to feel rehearsed rather than genuine. I longed for the days when he would surprise me with small acts of love, when his eyes lit up just by seeing me walk into the room. One evening, I found myself sitting alone in the living room, the television flickering in front of me while my mind wandered. He had texted that he'd be home late again. The same excuse, the same story. And yet, when he finally walked in hours later, there was no guilt in his eyes, only a strange heaviness, as though he was carrying something unspoken. I didn't ask questions that night. I simply watched him eat in silence, my heart aching with the weight of everything left unsaid. A part of me wanted to believe that things would get better, that we would somehow find our way back to the love we once knew. But deep down I sensed a storm was coming. And I was right, because just when I thought things couldn't feel more uncertain, he looked at me one night with an intensity one hadn't seen in years. His voice was calm but serious, his words deliberate. And then, he made a request that would change everything I thought I knew about him, about us, and about love itself. Section 2. The request. It was a quiet evening when everything shifted. The kind of evening that seemed ordinary at first. The soft glow of the lamp in our living room, the faint hum of the clock on the wall, and the faint scent of dinner still lingering in the air. We had just finished eating, and for the first time in a while, he wasn't distracted by his phone or rushing through the meal. Instead, he sat across from me, unusually still, his eyes studying me as though he was preparing to say something important. There was a weight in the silence, the kind that makes your chest tighten because you know the words about to come will change everything. I tried to smile, tried to break the tension, but before I could speak, he leaned forward. His voice was calm, steady, almost too measured. "I need to ask you something," he said. The seriousness in his tone made me nervous. My mind raced. Was he sick? Was he unhappy? Was he about to tell me something I wasn't ready to hear? My fingers tightened around the edge of my glass as I braced myself. But nothing could have prepared me for what followed. He asked me for something I never imagined would come from the man I trusted most. His words were deliberate, heavy, and laced with a strange vulnerability. He wanted me to do something for him, something intimate, something that crossed the line of everything I thought marriage was built on. At first, I thought I had misheard him. My heart pounded in my chest, my breath caught in my throat. I looked at him, waiting for him to laugh, to say it was a joke, but his expression remained unchanged. Serious, expectant. I shook my head, unable to process. "You can't mean that," I whispered. But he did. And the more I questioned him, the more firm he became. He spoke about trust, about desire, about fulfilling a part of himself he had kept hidden all these years. His words were soft but persuasive, carefully chosen to make it sound less like betrayal and more like devotion. Inside I was torn apart. My mind screamed no, but my heart, my foolish heart, clung to the fear of losing him. Would saying no push him further away? Would it make him seek what he wanted elsewhere? And if I said yes, what would that make me? The room felt smaller, the walls closing in as I wrestled with the storm inside me. I wanted to protect the marriage we had, but I also wanted to protect myself. For the first time I realized those two things might not be the same. Minutes passed in silence, though it felt like hours. He waited patiently, as though he knew I would eventually give in. And maybe he was right. Because after what felt like an eternity, I heard my own voice betray me. It was soft, shaky, almost a whisper. Yes. The word hung in the air like a curse. And as soon as it left my lips, I felt something inside me break. Section 3. Crossing the line. The days after my whispered yes felt unreal, as though I had stepped into someone else's life. I carried on with my routines, making coffee in the morning, going through work, preparing dinner, but beneath it all was a current of dread and anticipation. My husband, however, seemed lighter, almost relieved, as though a burden had been lifted from his shoulders. He spoke more kindly, smiled more often, and for a moment I wondered if this was his way of drawing me back to him. But then the night came. The night when his request turned from words into reality. I remember my hands trembling as I got ready, staring at myself in the mirror. I barely recognized the woman looking back at me. Her eyes were clouded with fear, her lips pressed tight as though holding back a scream. Kept asking myself why. Why was I doing this? Was it truly for him? Or was it because I was too afraid of what saying no might mean? When the moment arrived, everything around me felt sharp. The sound of footsteps, the beating of my own heart, the suffocating air in the room. My husband watched, his gaze unreadable, while I stood at the edge of a decision I could never undo. Crossing that line wasn't just about what happened physically, it was about what happened inside me. Every second felt heavy with guilt, as though I was betraying not only him but myself. I tried to shut out the noise in my mind, tried to numb myself to the reality, but the weight of it pressed down like a stone on my chest. I thought foolishly that once it was over, things would somehow make sense, that maybe it would bring us closer, that maybe I would understand why he wanted this. But when it ended, there was only silence. A cold, hollow silence that echoed louder than any words could. I sat there afterward, feeling stripped of something I couldn't name. My heart raced, my stomach churned, and I wanted nothing more than to rewind time, to erase what had just happened. But I couldn't. The line had been crossed. When I looked at my husband, I expected comfort, reassurance, something to remind me that I had done this for us. But instead, his eyes held a strange detachment, as though he was studying me, not loving me. I searched for warmth in his gaze, but all I found was distance. That was the moment I realized the truth. I had agreed to this not out of love, but out of fear. Fear of losing him. Fear of facing the emptiness I already sensed growing between us. And yet, by saying yes, I hadn't saved our marriage. I had shattered it. I lay awake that night, unable to close my eyes, replaying every second in my mind. The guilt was suffocating. The silence unbearable. In that stillness, a single thought haunted me. Some betrayals don't come from strangers. They come from the person who asks you to betray yourself. Section 4. Aftermath. The morning after was the hardest. The sun streamed through the curtains as if nothing had changed, yet everything inside me was different. I moved through the house like a stranger, my body present but my spirit hollow. My husband greeted me casually, his voice calm, almost cheerful, as though the night before had been nothing out of the ordinary. But for me it was everything. Every glance, every word, every moment with him felt unfamiliar. I tried to act normal, tried to smile, but inside I was unraveling. It was as though a wall had risen between us overnight, a wall I had helped build with that single word, yes. He seemed satisfied, lighter in ways I couldn't understand. For a time, He carried himself with an ease that made me question if this had been what he wanted all along, if my pain was the price for his peace. But while he appeared free, I carried the chains. The guilt became unbearable. At night, when he slept soundly beside me, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, haunted by what I had done. I replayed it over and over in my mind, wishing I had said no, wishing I had chosen myself over the fear of losing him. Days turned into weeks, and the silence between us deepened. We still lived under the same roof, still went through the motions of marriage, but the intimacy was gone. He had taken something from me, something I had given willingly, yet unwillingly at the same time. And with it, my sense of trust and safety vanished. The worst part wasn't the act itself. It was the realization that my husband, the man I had built my life with, had led me to betray myself. He had asked for something that broke me, and I had agreed out of love or what I thought was love. But true love doesn't ask for destruction. True love doesn't demand betrayal. I grew angry not only at him but at myself. Angry that I had been so afraid of losing him that I had lost myself instead. Angry that I had mistaken sacrifice for devotion. And angry that the marriage I once cherished was now nothing more than a shadow of what it used to be. One evening, as we sat in silence at the dinner table, I looked at him and realized I no longer knew the man sitting across from me. Or maybe I finally saw him for who he truly was. And in that moment, I understood something I had been avoiding. This wasn't about saving our marriage. It was about control. The cost of my yes was everything. My trust, my peace, my sense of self. Now, when I think back to that night, I don't just remember the betrayal. I remember the choice. The choice that taught me that sometimes the most dangerous infidelity isn't with another person. It's with the part of yourself you silence to keep someone else happy. And that is a betrayal that never heals.